Hello, dear friends. I'd like to talk about a very delicate topic that sometimes neglected by the church today. But this is one of those areas that especially young people are struggling with, and sometimes we think that we're too holy to discuss those things. But we're living in the times when people are talking about this everywhere, wherever you are, at school, at university, college, or work, even at home, on TV, on the internet, you see the same word. And nowadays it's like it's all about that we're living. It's sex. So sex, how do we treat it as the children of God? Young people come to counselors, come to me, and they just ask the same question: how do we treat it as the children of God? We're confused, and I understand that in many things that parents had to discuss with them, they didn't. They weren't involved in this. Maybe they thought that it wasn't necessary for their age. They think that maybe when he or she reaches the age of 16, I guess this is the right time to start talking about this. This is not right. I know a story when one woman from the church, one sister, shared her experience with her daughter when she decided to talk to her about sex and relationships when she was 16, when she turned 16. And she was appalled to find out that her daughter knows about this much, much more than she expected. You see, sometimes we think we just ignore our children. And we think that this is not important, but we're living in the different times. Maybe in the past that was correct, but now we need to set an alternative for our children. Alternative opinions so that they see and so that they don't suffer emotionally and physically in the future and don't be bereft of all the blessings that they could enjoy in their marriage life. In the life that God predestined to be for a male and a female. Contemporary young people have a free access to various kinds of information and are aware of this delicate topic more than we can even imagine. This is nothing in comparison to the times of their parents and those who are older. Therefore, we need to be very, very, very careful nowadays and teach them the ways of purity in this area. You see, that will be a blessing. This is not something that we're trying to take away from them. No, this is something that we are preparing them for the future, and for the future blessings, and to do it right. And due to denominational differences, orders, rules, and concepts, it may be difficult for your conscience to accept something that has been instilled for a long time through the doctrine of your particular denomination. You see, this is the introduction into something that we're going to talk about if God permits in the future, and discuss this topic in more detail and covering all kinds of questions and the questions that young people ask us. In some Christian circles, they even forbid to talk about this, even if they are struggling in this area themselves. Very often it happens when pastors forbid this topic to be discussed. They're actually caught in the act of being in this sin. You see, we need to be very careful. We need to be sincere. We need to be ourselves. We need to be real us. Because if there is a problem, you see what I like about the Bible? It doesn't cover the problem. It doesn't hide the sin. You need to expose it to light. Expose it and deal with it. Not just expose it and judge it, No, yes, it has to be judged. But then you say that this is wrong. Why? When you expose it to light, now how do we deal with it? I want to get you out of this, not just to trample you under my feet and say that you are like this is it. It's finished. Nothing can be changed about this. This is not true. But if the church doesn't set a role model, an example, and doesn't teach the next generation how to handle this issue in holiness, then we will lose them and be guilty if they perish eternally. You see, we are accountable. We will give account to the Lord for those souls that we did not teach. Of course, parents wouldn't like to talk about it because they think it can morally defile them. And they do it with the best intentions because they love them. They don't know those hidden and covered things you don't expose because you don't want to grieve them. Parents, you don't even know how much the children are hiding from you. They don't feel comfortable to discuss it with you because they know your attitude towards it. They're afraid of talking about this openly. But you and I know exactly what you're struggling with, what is tormenting your soul, and what your schools, friends, contemporary music, television, and internet are teaching you. You know it. And little by little, you're getting addicted to those views. They're stealing your hearts away. This is very important. It's a matter of life and death in the spiritual realm. I'm sure you will agree that a young person's life is full of snares today. The blood is hot, the hormones are like roller coasters, and desires of the flesh sometimes speak louder than your conscience. And you commit that sin, and then you think, what have I done? Very often you get into companies where you encounter serious temptations. And young people will encounter serious temptations. Everybody will encounter serious temptations, but the matter is, and the question is, how do we deal with them? Especially when you study or work far away from your parents' house on your own. Another trait of youth is self-confidence. You see, we're going through that transitional period in our lives into adulthood when we think that we know better, when we think that we know everything. I've been there. I know what I'm talking about. And another trait of youth today is self-confidence. I know it better. I don't want to discuss it with you. And the reason of it is a lack of life experience. Lack of life experience. You know how many things I had to change in my views when I actually experienced something in my marriage life. When I realized some of the things that I hadn't been taught in my church. You know, I went to a different church in Switzerland, and there was a conference, and they actually teach the young people about this. And on our way back home, I was driving, and my wife and I burst into tears, and we were just crying because and asked ourselves, why didn't our church teach this? It's very important. Why are we losing our next generation? Why are we selling them to the devil? This is why you are prone to make mistakes more easily than a mature adult person because of lack of experience. While a mature person weighs options and then makes decisions, life experience is obtained through trials, hardships, disappointments, sorrows, and sufferings. Unfortunately, we don't learn from history. We can see even in the current events, when we look at the current events today going on, we can see that. But don't even talk about the past history, even about the history of other people surrounding us. When we look at them, we see when they fell, what the consequences they reaped. we should learn from this. But very often we have to learn from our own mistakes, unfortunately. Why? Because it grieves your heart and it hurts you. Basically, you have to pay the price to learn something. During this time, it is easy to suffer a shipwreck in your faith when your belief is challenged by secular professors and people around you. Youth is a beautiful time, but very risky. At this time, a young person chooses either the way with the Lord or without Him. You see, when a person formed his views, his worldview, and he reaches that mature age, it's more difficult to turn to the Lord. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is possible. Because when God touches the heart, He melts it unto repentance. But I'm talking about our views, the formation of views during the years. For young people, it's much, much easier to turn to the Lord and commit themselves faithfully to Him. Some young people cry and say, I cannot get rid of self-gratification or masturbation, pornography, addiction, or even sex. I'm always angry, impatient, and unable to forgive. I tell lies, I'm a hypocrite and full of hatred. I've gone to church for many years and nothing changes. I'm still the same. While in the eyes of their parents, they look very good. And their parents think, my children are really good. And their life is full of cares and worries, full of work and business, and they ignore this very important part, to talk to their children. Just to ask them before they go to bed, how has your day been? Are you okay? Maybe you want to discuss something. Try to find what young people, what your children like. Even if you don't like it, try to be involved in that hobby or whatever they like doing. Because that might be the door to open their hearts to you and start a serious conversation. Don't just look down on them and be angry with them if they did something wrong, because they open their hearts to you. They want you to listen and understand them and then give advice. Just listen. Be patient. Even if something is wrong in their life, don't just shout at them. Listen to them. Try to understand them. In Proverbs 24:11 it says, deliver those who are drawn toward death. In another translation it says, rescue those who are being taken away to death. Friends, this is why I am in this ministry. And I want more and more people, including their parents, to be involved in this. To rescue those who are being taken away to death. And it says further, and hold back those stumbling to the slaughter. This is the ministry of every single person, if you call yourself a Christian, a child of God. We need to warn about the mistakes that are easy to make, but very often hard to correct, and sometimes even impossible to correct. In Proverbs 22:6 it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You see, the word child here in Hebrew means like a baby. A newborn person into this world. We already have to deal with our child to lay the foundation. If we don't lay the foundation in their early age, it will be hard to do when they reach their teens. And even harder when they become adults. So this is why it's the right time to train up your child. Because when he's old, even he's old, as the Russian translation puts it, he will not depart from it. And 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 22 says, "Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord." You need to find a circle of friends who follow the Lord. Not just say they follow, not just say they do, but actually follow the Lord and have a living relationship with Him. If you're avoiding those people, think about this. Why am I avoiding them? Because I don't want to walk in Jesus' ways. I think it's boring. It's boring because you haven't experienced Him. Because when you do, and when your heart has a change, then it's not boring to you anymore. And Ephesians 5:5, "For this you know that no fornicator," these words are just sobering. "Sexually immoral, who has sex with someone to whom he is not married outside of marriage, unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater." You see, all these sins, if you commit them, you're an idolater. Because today we think, no, I'm not an idolater. I don't worship the sun. I don't worship the trees or the nature. But this is the idolatry in God's eyes. "And nor a covetous man who is an adulterer has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God." You won't have inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. You will never see Him, because the pure in heart can see Him, shall see Him. And in conclusion, I'd like to say the matter is that young people don't know what is allowed and what is not. They don't know what the consequences they will reap after they made certain decisions, because there are many consequences, especially when you allow sexual relationships in your life. And even scientifically proved that your emotions, your physical condition, it can be disturbed and even lead to a disease. And we're going to talk about this in more detail in our future sessions, if God permits. So the question is, how do we treat this and that issue as the children of God? They don't know what sexual relationships lead to emotionally, physically, and medically, because nobody talks to them about it. Nobody warns them. May we be pure in heart. Let's embark on this beautiful journey and the beautiful gift of intimate relationships. But we need to discuss it in the way that God established it for us. Thank you for watching.